Anyway, Jack Elsom's here, chief political correspondent for The Sun. Piece in the paper today by Jerome Starkey, the defence editor, about the Ukraine scenario. No one in Ukraine wants this war to carry on, but how it ends matters. And Jerome has been on this show many times. Jack, a very good morning to you, talking about how so many people in Ukraine that we speak to do not want to give up any land at all. And Putin, presumably, doesn't want to give up any land either that you may have gained in Ukraine. So how does it all get done, this deal?
Well, yeah, morning, Mike. Good piece from Jerome Starkey. He's just actually returned from the Eastern Front in Ukraine in the past few days. He's really talking in this piece about the end game now. Yeah. And we've seen Zelensky accept Trump's proposed deal about a 30-day ceasefire so that peace talks can begin with Russia. The ball now, as he points out, is in Russia's court. But what he also says in this piece is that Vladimir Putin is likely to play hardball and is going to be asking some demands which is going to bring him into immense friction with Ukraine and possibly even the United States. Now, if you look about what those might be, it could be one, Kyiv is never allowed to join NATO. Yeah. Foreign troops are never allowed to be placed in Ukraine, and parts of Ukraine which Russia has taken, either be it Crimea or various other parts since their invasion in 2022, those are going to be his demands. Now, Zelensky, it seems that those would be completely unpalatable. You know, he has said that he wants to join NATO. He's been backed up by European leaders with that. Similarly, in terms of peacekeeping troops on the ground, obviously that's basically the whole raison d'etre of Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron's plan. Yes. But you wonder whether or not actually those will be palatable to Donald Trump, because he's not putting foreign troops there. He's been pretty cold on the idea of Ukraine joining NATO, or at least some of his top officials have. And you can probably see him carving out territory as well. And so I think that as we approach this end game, all of the allies in the West are going to be drawn into more and more friction, because Donald Trump seems to be pretty hasty in wanting to get an agreement done. He said he wants to end the war very quickly, but Zelensky obviously has more of a stake in this than the president, and so I think that as we approach these peace talks, it can get pretty ugly.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, one of the things that he says in his piece is that basically you're dealing with people who are incredibly treacherous, right? He says it's more like a 3D chess game with multiple treacherous players, and that's the problem, isn't it? I mean, you could literally agree something in a room, and they're supposedly going to talk to Russia later on today. I'm not sure who's going to be part of those discussions, whether it's Marco Rubio or whether it's Vladimir Putin. I don't know. But you could literally have an agreement, and by the time you've walked to the door to open it to go out and say we've got an agreement, you won't have an agreement.
Oh, totally. And, you know, the normal rules of global politics have been completely upended in the past few years. First of all, with that invasion of Russia and Ukraine, and then obviously the Trump presidency too, because the normal parameters in which you operate, if you are playing chess, you know, then Putin can come along, sweep off all the pieces, kick away the board and say, I'm not having any of that, and we're going to do things my way. It really is difficult at the moment to see how this ends anytime soon, because, like I said, I just think that there's so much differences between what Putin's going to want and what's going to be acceptable to Zelensky. Now, the only fly in the ointment, obviously, big fly in the ointment, is Donald Trump, who clearly is going to want to get this done pretty quickly. And we know that he's not afraid to strong-arm Ukraine in a pretty hefty way, whether or not that was choking off intelligence, stopping military aid going to the front line. That seems to have been a pretty brutal way, but it has forced Zelensky to make some concessions. So you'd imagine that those would be levers which he'd be happy to pull again if Zelensky doesn't bend even further. The question about what Europe's going to do, I mean, Europe's made a lot of noise in this, but actually, while I think Keir Starmer's been admirable in what he said, we're not really players anymore, because it seems to be between Ukraine, the US, and Russia. And we can offer to put peacekeeping troops on the ground, but it seems to be that this is going to be drawn up between the US and Russia, and then Zelensky will have to decide what he can stomach in a deal.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary times, aren't they? Very good to talk to you. Jack Elsom from The Sun, thank you very much indeed. Big piece on page 10 by Jerome Starkey, The Sun's defence correspondent, who's just got back from Ukraine, talking about how difficult these peace talks are going to be. There is going to be supposedly a conversation that's had this afternoon between the US and Russia. Basically, Donald Trump saying, we're going to damage you, we're going to ruin you, we're going to mess up your economy if you don't agree to a peace deal. And as Peter Hitchens just reminded us, the economy in Russia is not in great shape anyway to begin with. Talking about the state of the nation, we've got loads and loads more pictures coming through. One here from Roy, who says he's originally from Slough, now in Gloucester. This is the state of Slough High Street now. Once a vibrant shopping centre with great nightlife, now it is simply a ghost town.